Okay, I had a problem recording my Zoom meeting tonight. This is your first Zoom, was your first Zoom meeting, May 23rd on chapter 11. And so I just wanted to do a brief video and just point out if you could get out your ebook or your textbook, and we could just look quickly at uh, chapter 11, and it's in towards the beginning on page 321 in the section called Comunicación. I just wanted to point out some things I think you're going to need to know for your chapter test, which will be in 2 weeks. Every 2 weeks we have a chapter test. Every 2 weeks, and most of your work, as you know, is found on Connect. It's in your course plan and schedule. The dates are clearly marked there. We'll spend 2 weeks in Connect on each chapter. At the end of the first week on Sunday evening, all your work for that week will be due, and then the rest of the work for that chapter will be due at the end of the Sunday of the following week. And then the following Tuesday of the second Sunday would be your chapter test. It's all laid out there. But if we go to chapter 11, page 321, there is a section there. It starts out on just how do you greet somebody? How would you say welcome to somebody? And normally when you welcome somebody, you would say bienvenido, and you can use the verb to be. You are welcome. Tú eres bienvenido. And so bienvenido is an adjective there. And so we know that in Spanish, in Spanish, adjectives have to agree in gender and number with the people they refer to. So if you tell a male, you're welcome, you would say tú eres bienvenido. If it's a woman, tú eres bienvenida. If it's more than one person and it's mixed sex, it would be ustedes son bienvenidos. Make sure you're aware of this. If it's just a group of women, ustedes son bienvenidas. The other way to say you are welcome or to give somebody a welcome is dar la bienvenida a. Dar, to give, la bienvenida, the noun. Now, I'm not using it as an adjective, is the noun. So, yo te doy la bienvenida. I'm giving you a welcome. I'm welcoming you. Yo te doy la bienvenida. Or I could say, tú eres bienvenido. If it's a guy, or tú eres bienvenida if you're a female. Next, I just wanted to point out on page 323. And again, if you missed my meeting, I went through this, but I'll just try to make note of that here. On page 323 of chapter 11, they talk about giving or making polite invitations. So if you invite someone to your home, that's because the whole idea of chapter 11 is the house and the home. And so if you might tell somebody, eat more, or have a good time, or come on in, pasa, or sit down, or serve yourself. And so I wanted you to see that section. Now, in English, when we give a command, like I just gave, we only have one command form because we really only use one form of you. It's you. It's singular, plural, formal, informal. We only use it. It's very simple. But in Spanish, there are multiple yous. And the yous we're going to be using in this class are the informal you, tú, the formal you, that's singular, usted, and the plural formal you all, ustedes. So there's 3 different commands. Be aware of that on your exam. They might want you to give a tú command. They might want you to give an usted command. They might want you to give an ustedes command. So Make sure you know how to form the command form of a verb. Okay, so for example, if you want to tell somebody you eat more and you're using tú, it's come más. But if it's usted, it's coma más. Okay, and if it's ustedes, it's coman más. Make sure you know how to form the command forms. Okay, we've learned these and you should be familiar with them. Okay, so let's take a look here. Have a good time is divertir. Divertirse, it's used reflexively, literally divert yourself. Diviértete is you too have a good time. Ustedes diviértase, and you all, ustedes diviértanse. Make sure you say that. Pasar, pasa, come on in. The tú form is pasa, the usted form is pase, and the ustedes form is passing. Again, make sure you look at that. And on your exam, make sure if they give you a pictorial like they do on page 324, and they say choose the correct command form, it's going to vary with whether you're using tú with a friend or family member, or if it's with perhaps somebody you don't know in a public setting, you're going to use usted. If there's a group of people, you're going to use the ustedes form. Just be aware of that. Next, just take a look at page 325, vocabulario. It's not very demanding vocabulary, this chapter. Make sure you know the parts of a home, las partes de una casa. Okay, the word for bedroom, dormitorio, habitación. The word for bathroom, el baño. Kitchen, cocina. Dining room, comedor. Look through that, spend a little time on that. The word for apartment, apartamento. Okay, building is edificio. Okay, roof, el techo. Living room, el salón, or or la sala. Also, make sure you know los muebles. You're familiar with los muebles. These are on page 326. And los electrodomésticos, the appliances you find in a home. You don't have to know everything, but there's a good list of them on page 326. Un sofá is a sofa. Un fregadero is a sink, a kitchen sink. Una estufa is a stove. Un refrigerador is a refrigerator. A lavaplatos is a dishwasher. Lámpara, lamp. Okay. Ducha is a shower. Lavadora, from lavar, is a wash machine. Inodoro is a toilet. Look at those. Make sure you're familiar with the parts of a home, the cuartos of the home, the aparatos, electrodomésticos, the appliances, los electrodomésticos, el microondas, the microwave. Make sure you're familiar with those. Un lavabo, the sink. And finally, let's see. Make sure that you know, and these are on page 327, los quehaceres, just a few of them. Domésticos, the chores around a home. Barrer, to sweep. Hacer la cama, to make your bed. Lavar los platos, to wash the dishes. Okay. Pasar la aspiradora. The aspiradora is the vacuum cleaner, to vacuum. Make sure you know that. And you're just familiar with that. Okay. Now let's jump into estructura, to the grammar of chapter 11. And I just want to point some of this out to you real quickly. On page 330, they start with the grammar, and they introduce the present perfect tense. We have the same tense in English, and it's formed in exactly the same way. In English, we would say for the present, if I want to take the verb to eat and I want to use it in the present perfect, I would say, I have eaten. They have eaten. Walked. He has walked. You have walked. Notice that it's the verb to have and then the past participle of the verb. So you need to know the verb to have. You need to know what verb to have to use, because we have a verb tener, to have. We don't use that here. We use the verb haber. Make sure you know that, and make sure you're able to conjugate the verb haber. Okay, this is all laid out in your book on page 331 and 332. Okay, so if let's conjugate the verb haber in the present tense. Yo he, I have. Tú has, you have. Él ha, he has. Ella ha, she has. Usted ha, you have. We have is nosotros hemos, and they have is ellos han. You all have, ustedes han. Make sure you know I'm sorry, has, ha, hemos, and han. Know those conjugations. Once you've used the verb haber, you've used the correct form of have, then you've got to use the correct past participle. So I have eaten, they have walked. And the past participle, it shows you in the book how to form them. Get the stem of the verb. All right. If it's an AR verb, you get the stem of the verb and you add on ado. So tomar is to take, let's say. How would I say I have taken? Well, I get the stem tom, and if it's an AR verb, I add on ado. So tomado, taken. So I have taken is yo he tomado. Please look at this. Now there are two other classes of verbs, right? Verbs that end in er and ir. How did they form the past participle? Stem, get your stem again, and add on ido. And you're done. It's that simple. So I have lived. What is the past participle of live? I get the stem viv, and I add on ido. Vivido, lived. I have lived, yo he vivido. All right. What about an er verb? Stem and ido again. So I have eaten. Comido is eaten. Yo he comido. Make sure you conform those. All right. Those are laid out for you in the book very, very clearly. Now, there are 6 past participles that are irregular. Please learn them. Okay. They're really common. They do not form by stem and ado, stem and ido. You just have to memorize them. They're totally irregular. And they're on page 322. So decir, I have said. Said is not decido, it's dicho. Yo he dicho. Escribir, it's escrito, it's irregular. Yo he escrito, I have written. Hacer, very important, is hecho. I have made is yo he hecho. Morir, yo he muerto, not morido. To put or place, I have put, yo he puesto. And I have seen, yo he visto. They're on page 322. Please make sure you know those. I'm sure they're going to be on your exam in 2 weeks. All right. Okay. The next thing I wanted to point out is on page 337. 337. You're just going to have to go to your book. It's 11.2. It's commands with object and reflexive pronouns. So again, think of your commands. You might tell somebody to eat it or serve it, or you might tell somebody look at yourself. So when you give commands with an object like it or them, or a reflexive pronoun, yourself, where do you place them when you give the command? All right, and this is on page 337. When you give an affirmative positive command, you attach the object, the it or the them, or the reflexive pronoun yourself, you attach it to the end of the command. So if you want to tell somebody to fall asleep, which is dormirse, it's reflexive, you would say duermete. You attach the te yourself onto the verb. If you want to tell someone to serve themselves, the object pronoun to yourself, or you want to tell somebody to serve him, you would say sirve le. You could attach the le to the command sirvele. Now, what about if you have a negative command? How do we give negative commands? We put no. We first start out with no, and then you would give the command form, whatever it is. But what if you had an object or a reflexive pronoun? Okay, so you want to tell somebody, don't fall asleep. All right, so you would say, no te duermes. What did I do? I put the object, the reflexive pronoun, before the conjugated verb. Watch that, it's very important. You might tell somebody to sit down. Siéntate. Okay, sit yourself down. You put the reflexive pronoun after the verb. You put the reflexive pronoun after the verb. Okay? But when you give a negative command, you put it before. You put it before the verb. Okay, so make sure you look at that. Your book goes through this very clearly at the bottom of page 337 through 338. Okay, when you give an affirmative command, you attach the reflexive pronoun to the end of the verb command, or the object pronoun to the end of the verb command. When you give a negative command, you start out with no, and you put your reflexive pronoun or your pronoun before the conjugated verb. Okay, just get used to it. And then finally, I wanted to jump to page 340. Your last thing you need to know is you need to know how to form the present progressive tense. Okay, and the present progressive tense is formed the same way in Spanish as it is in English. What is the present progressive tense? It's a two, just like the present perfect tense had two verb forms in it, so does the present progressive tense. For example, I am talking. Okay, so I'm taking the verb to talk, and I want to put it in the present progressive. I would say I am talking. Let's take the verb walk and put it in the present progressive. He is walking. Okay, what about the verb to sing? They are singing. What do you see here? You see two verb forms, the verb to be. Okay, we conjugate it in the present tense, and then you hear you see the ing form of the verb. That's called the present participle. So to form the present progressive tense, you got to be able to conjugate the verb to be, and then you've got to be able to form the participle or the ing form, the present participle of the verb. Singing, walking, talking, studying. How do we do this? Well, first of all, we all know the verb to be. It's either ser or a star. With the present progressive, we always use a star. Always. Okay? Okay, so yo estoy. Nosotros estamos. Now, that's half the battle. Okay, so we're going to conjugate the verb estar in the present tense. Now we want to finish this off. We need to know, how do we put the verb, whatever the verb is. Let's take the verb to study, estudiar. I want to form the ing form, the present participle. So I can say I am studying. Well, how do I say I am? Yo estoy. Now how do I say studying? This is how you form the present participle or ing form of a verb. If it's an AR verb, you get the stem, so es, and you add on ando. So estudiando. Estudiando means studying. So I am studying is yo estoy estudiando. They're studying. ellos están estudiando. Not ellos son, ellos están estudiando. Okay, we are studying. Nosotros estamos estudiando. What if we have an ER or an IR verb? Let's take vivir, to live. You get the stem of the verb, viv, and you add on yendo. So living becomes viviendo. What about comer? It's an ER verb. You get the stem and you add on yendo. So comiendo is eating. See how simple this is? Go through the rules, look at it. To form the present participle or the ing form of a verb in Spanish, get the stem of the verb. If it's an AR verb, stem in ando, okay, tomando for taking, all right, trabajando for working. But you must know whether you have an AR, ER, IR verb. Make sure you're clear on that. If you have an IR verb, it's going to be stem in iendo, viviendo, and for an ER verb, same thing, iendo ending, comiendo is eating. All right, but to form the full present progressive tense, you have to first conjugate estar, and then you would tack on your present participle. So they are eating would be ellos están comiendo, never son. Just be mindful of this. And real quickly, if you go to page 341, there are a few exceptions. They show you how to form the present participle. It's all there, what I just did with you. And in number 2 on page 341, when they're talking about the present participle, there are a few irregular present participles. It's just not stem in iendo or stem in ando. In some, there's some spelling changes. Please look at these. And specifically, IR stem changing verbs like decir, pedir, seguir, servir. They have slight spelling changes. The E in the stem goes to I when you form the present participle. So decir, if you want to say decir, is to speak. Speaking is not diciendo, it's diciendo. The E goes to I. Pedir, to request or ask for or order. It's not pediendo, it's pidiendo. Everybody got that? Seguir, to follow. It's not siguiendo, it's siguiendo. Why? These are all IR verbs that are stem changers that we learned in last semester are stem changers. And the E of the stem goes to I. And the last one you're responsible for is servir. It's not serviendo, it's sirviendo. Just look at that. And there's there's one other spelling change rule that you might want to look like for leer, oír, and traer. Even though they're ER and IR verbs, their present participle form does not iendo. When you write it, isn't iendo, it's yendo. So when you're speaking it, you never know this. It's just when you're writing it, instead of iendo with an I, it's iendo with a Y for those three verbs, leer, oír, and traer. Please take a look at that. And so I just wanted you to be aware of this. Again, my Zoom meeting failed to record, but what I wanted to do was just go over what I think is very important in this chapter, okay? So know your command forms, know whether you're giving a tú command, an usted command, or an ustedes command. They're very different. And also know how to give a command using a reflexive pronoun, like look at yourself or do it. Make sure you know where to place the yourself, the reflexive pronoun, or to replace the it or the them. See them, okay? Eat them. You attach the reflexive pronoun or the object pronoun to the end of the command when it's an affirmative command. But when you have a negative command, you start out your negative command with a no, then you insert the reflexive pronoun or the object pronoun right before the conjugated verb. So, no te duermes, don't fall asleep. So, duérmete, fall asleep, no te duermas, okay? Um, uh, don't do it, okay? No lo hagas, okay? Okay, no lo hagas, but if you want to tell somebody do it, hazlo, okay? So just make sure when it's negative, you put your pronouns before the conjugated verb. Make sure you know las partes de una casa, okay, los cuartos. Make sure you know los electrodomésticos, la aspiradora. Make sure you know some of the quehaceres, quitar el polvo, sacudir, pasar la aspiradora, barrer, sacar la basura. Make sure you're familiar with some of these things. The different rooms of the house, the dormitorio, la cocina, comedor. And I think that's where you should be focusing your energies. Okay, and with that, I will say good evening.